up there. It's Monday, January 20th, 2014, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And I'm up in Butte County. I'm above the Chico area. And we got these bluffs out here. It's a vast valley. Over here to the south, to the left, got a highway that runs between Chico and Paradise and other communities further east in the foothills of the Sierra. And this is looking west right here. Those mountains in the distance are like the Trinity Alps. Got a big valley here, kind of a canyon. Maybe from an ancient ice flow or something. I'm at a spot called Lookout Point. And not too long ago, they put up these big rocks and this fence because so many people were killing themselves by driving off this this steep cliff right here, as you can see. It's pretty much dropped straight off there. Yeah, I wanted to have a quick word about Martin Luther King Jr. in honor and tribute of this man. He's one of the few high-profile, prominent people that I would really have liked to have met. And as most people know, Martin Luther King Jr. was an advocate of the people. He wanted what was best for the people of America. He was an advocate of the poor. He was an advocate of the working class. And he was an advocate of maintaining a minimum standard of living, not for some, but for everybody. And I also am an advocate of these things. And from his same generation came men like JFK, who were on the same side as Martin Luther King Jr. And they understood things like sound currency, what it would entail, and how this was the answer to societal problems, at least the problems that we could solve as a society. You understand that every job is important, and Martin Luther King Jr., he supported this idea that these garbage men in Memphis, that he went to this rally and supported these guys, their requests were not unreasonable. They wanted respect, they wanted dignity, they wanted fair pay. And could anybody say that they were out of line to want these things and to seek to have these things? Can anybody say Martin Luther King Jr. was out of line by being on their side and supporting their cause? You know, what's happened in America is a real shame. And the worst part is, it's not done happening. Our standard of living continues to get whittled away. We've had periods where it's really jumped and it's really grown tremendously. And one of those recent time periods was when Bill Clinton allowed the Glass-Steagall Act to be ended, and it allowed the banks to dump currency on the public, putting them in debt. And then we got George Bush in office, that after 9/11, the best thing he had to say was, don't stop spending money, invest. And you know, this is what the terrorists hate about us, is that we're capitalists. And these people sicken me. I don't care what party affiliation, but you're politicians. And if you're establishmentarians, if you're supporting the status quo, which the policies of the establishment are dictated by the Rockefeller class, these Illuminati, these elitist class, that are the untouchables. They think they're above the law and that it's hands off to these people. Well, I got news for you. because it's all going to hit the fan very soon. And there's going to be no turning around. People are figuring it out in droves, that we're all being taken, that poverty and oppression, austerity are invented by the elite ruling class for a purpose, to keep us impoverished, to keep us oppressed, to keep us under their tyranny, under their thumb, to exact their pound of flesh from us. It's a perverted form of reverence these people are utilizing, and they sicken me. I don't care what your status is in this world, high, medium, or low. I've met elitists in all walks of life. I've met people working on minimum wage jobs that used to support a family in this country, and they defend minimum wage. They say, well, you know, they think they've got some economics education, and they say, well, you know, the professors say that if we raise minimum wage, it's going to cause the cost of living to go up. It'll cause inflation. And it sickens me to hear these lies from the pit of hell. If this was a what came first, the chicken or the eggs question, I would say, well, you know, they got a point that will drive the cost of living up. No. The check and balance is adjusting the COLA. That's called a cost of living adjustment. Who in their right mind cannot defend a COLA? If your cost of living is going up, it's common sense to understand these things. Very rudimentary economics to understand that you got to balance that and offset it with rising salaries, rising pay, rising income. One way or another, you've either got to work more, and if there's not enough work, that option's not out there unless you're really hyper aggressive and you got that social Darwinist kind of philosophy. Or the other step is that you just simply raise the minimum wage to counterbalance the increase in the cost of living. But you can't have it both ways, okay? It is not a question of what came first, okay? We know what came first. The cost of living went up. That's the debasement of your currency. That's inflation. And the justification for raising wages is that you got to be able to say, hey, I see what you did here. I see you market manipulators. I see you price fixers. Identify them. Hold their feet to the fire. Hold them accountable and blame them for increased labor costs. Don't you dare blame labor. Never. Every single job out there is important or it wouldn't exist. What we need to do maybe is ration work, okay? We need to call the bluff with these people. We need to re-understand the value of labor. Like Adam Smith pointed out, bar none, the single greatest asset any nation has is its labor force. And that's undebatable. That's irrefutable. That's a fact. That's a fact that nobody can argue. Because why? Because nothing, absolutely nothing gets done without your labor force. Often uneducated workers out there that keep the wheels of society going. And without them, you wouldn't have nothing. You wouldn't have a car. You wouldn't have a radio. You wouldn't have a house. You wouldn't have groceries. Do you understand? So I don't know who I'm talking to, but whoever it is, you might need to hear what I'm saying and then pass it along. And when somebody wants to have an in-depth economic discussion with you, you tell them, yes, I can. Let's keep it poignant, let's keep it succinct, and let's keep it matter of fact, okay? It's all very, very simple. In order to have sound currency, you've got to have accountability. That's the checks and balances I'm talking about. You've got to have somebody overseeing the welfare of the common man. Yeah, maybe that is a form of protectionism, because in the dictionary definition, it's about tariffs and balancing things out, and that's okay too. What's wrong with protectionism? Aren't you glad you got the police there to protect you? Aren't you glad you got the military to protect you? Well, who's there to protect the working class? I want to know. Who's out there? Now that they've murdered Martin Luther King Jr., now that they've murdered JFK, who's out there? Who's left as a voice in the wilderness for the downtrodden, the poor, the oppressed? the working class, the labor class. Who's out there? You tell me. You know what? I'm trying to be that voice. I'm trying to serve God and humanity in whatever way I know how. And the way I know how is speaking truth as I have learned it. And I've gotten to the bottom of what's bugging me. I know what's bugging me, and I probably know what's bugging you. If you really investigate it, you'll see. What makes you have those escapist tendencies? What makes you want to run, not walk away from this system? Huh? What makes you want to go do retail therapy or gamble or do drugs or alcohol? I'll tell you what's doing it. I'll tell you what's doing it is these monsters at the top of the economic food chain. Yes, they're monsters, they're evil. And if your life is okay, don't get complacent. Don't you be indifferent about the plight of others, because you're going to suffer. Just as sure as the day is long, you're going to suffer whether you know it or not. I know what bugs me. I can't enjoy my prosperity. And most people in America, they looked in at my life, my financial circumstances, they'd pity me. They'd say, oh, you poor bastard. At 55 years old, that's all you have? Really? But I feel rich. And you know something? I can't even enjoy what little I have. And I'll tell you why. Because I got brothers and sisters that are going to die out in the cold tonight. In the land of milk and honey. America, the land of opportunity. And this is going on, and I'm supposed to stay cool, calm, and relaxed because things are okay for me, because I got food in my belly, I got a roof over my head, and I'm supposed to say, hey, can't worry about them. They must be stupid. They must be weak. They must be defective. They must be deserving of what they get. No, that's not the case. And that's why I can't be quiet, because I want to enjoy my stinking little life. And I've got a right, as an American, not only as an American, but as a human being on the face of God's green earth, to seek happiness. And happiness involves caring about my fellow human being, caring about the downtrodden, caring about those that aren't as smart as me, that aren't as competent as me, that aren't as strong as me, and not caving into what these people, these elitist scum, hypocrites at the top want. That social Darwinism. Survival of the strongest, the fittest, the most conforming to Satan. Basically, that's what you're conforming to in this world. This system is run by no less than the spirit of Satan. And we've got to fight like hell just to survive, and it sickens me. It really does. What they've done is they've legalized slavery in this country. It's a prison planet. Yes, it is. And I'll be damned if I'm going to go down without fighting. And the way I fight is right here on these videos. Is try to wake up other people so you understand how simple all this system is, and how the problems could be solved very easily, except there's all these interests out there that have a stake in the problem. The problem, not only maintaining the problem, but to increase the problems. Do you understand? Their job security depends on it. If you work in the social welfare system, and if there was a threat, somebody was going to come and end poverty in America, that's your job security. Okay, all the crimes that are committed for financial desperation, which are the vast majority of them, your job security depends on the crimes continuing. You understand how sickeningly simple all this is? It's a military-industrial complex. If your job depends on maintaining warfare somewhere in the world, so you have job security, do you understand that if there was an end to warfare, that might be an end to your job? I mean, we've all got to wake up and say, man, I know which side I'm on. This guy speaks truth. He's investigated, he's researched, he's learned from the wisest, most benevolent souls and spirits on earth and minds out there. And I've accumulated it, and I'm bringing it to you in a very simple, succinct format here. I'm telling you what it's all about, folks. And it's all about problem maintenance. And if that's not Satan's handiwork, I don't know what is. Because it sure isn't God's. Because if God was running this world, I'll tell you how it would be. If he was running the treasures of this world, we would have a rising tide of prosperity that would lift all ships. And it's going to happen someday. And it may only happen at the return of Jesus, in which case it will be a very abrupt change. Okay? But it could happen gently. If we just had sound currency, if we could just demand that one single thing is sound currency in this country, we'd see it happen gradually, gently. You'd see. that we would have a rising tide of prosperity that would lift all ships, and that your work week would continually be in decline, people retiring earlier and earlier, people feeling appreciated when they went to work. As an instinct, we want to serve one another. We don't want to sit around and be hedonistic and self-serving all day. I want to